Ladies and gentlemen, hello again, and welcome back to Don't Worry About the Government. My name is Chris Novembrino. I am checking my microphone. I am checking it twice. We're going to make sure my mic is nice and not naughty this week here on the episode of Don't Worry About the Government because Santa Claus is coming to town. It's the 4th of July. It's Christmas in my heart. This is basically like American Christmas for me. Joining me on the show here to celebrate America's Christmas is Dan Carpenter. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm doing well, Chris. I'm
Are you
doing
filled
well.
with the spirit?
I had the traditional 4th of July spaghetti and meatballs today. I know you're having your traditional 4th of July turkey, so it's a very festive day all over.
You know, I like to think that this is a very Dallas, like my neighborhood 4th of July turkey sauce thing that I made here because I had various vegetables that needed to be used in my fridge. I used a jar of sauce and I needed some meat. So I went to the corner here and got a smoked turkey leg that fell off the damn bone. It's fantastic. It mushed right in beautifully with the sauce. It filled my heart with the flavor of America on this 4th of July, which is like a really damn good smoked turkey leg. Yeah. Hell yeah. So, a lot of news here this week, including a sleeper story late on Friday night to send us off for the holiday weekend, which we'll get here. This is one that, like, if you didn't read the headlines for over the weekend, and like not many people had a reason to because most people are out and about and celebrating coronavirus being over, which for those of you on the video feed watching on patreon.com/DWATG, air quotes and pulled collars on coronavirus is over. Delta variant, very real. I should have kept that story about the Delta variant up.
Here in Sonoma County, we are back to levels of hospitalization back to the same level of hospitalization for coronavirus as we had in March prior to widespread vaccine distribution, which is shitty.
That's really interesting. So nationwide, I did see this week, cases are down under 20,000, which is it seems like 1,000 years ago at this point was sort of where I would feel good about going back out again. And good again being put in quotes here. Like that's still like at mask up levels. Like for me, like it would need to be like 2,000 to 5,000 to feel like, yeah, I don't need them. Like I have a vaccine. You don't really need a mask at this point. I'm still masking up. Like I went to the gas station earlier, masked up. I'm still wearing my mask. But it's interesting to hear you say that the numbers in your locale have spiked that quickly, and it seems to be the case that this Delta variant is going to be pretty muscular. And to that point, Biden has been able to get 67% of adults to at least get the first dose of the vaccine. Maybe I'm framing that the wrong way, but Biden set a goal of 70% by July 4th. It's July 4th. Like, you will probably hear fireworks outside my window here all night because we're doing them here in Dallas.
Fireworks are very banned here in most of Sonoma County, particularly my town and the surrounding areas. They are banned.
I mean, they're not allowed.
Well,
yeah.
I would expect as much from Dallas.
Dude, I mean,
we had them going here last night in spite of them being prohibited and it literally being like an existential threat for everyone around them.
One thing when I was doing the news roundup this week that has struck me, not on the slate, was just how many wildfires are going on all over the planet right now. It's not like the whole planet is burning, but like there was I was doing my world news roundup. It's like Cyprus has wildfires. There's wildfires in northern Canada. There's like a lot of places that you wouldn't necessarily expect big fires in, or don't sound like big fireplaces that are having big fires right now.
The
And
more
sign of the times.
the more energy we add to these weather systems, the more lightning, like ground lightning strikes there's going to be. Like it's these weather, like what would ordinarily be a nice summer shower is going to be a much larger thunderstorm, like maybe including hail. Like they're all of these things are getting very intense,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
people have been saying they would for 40 years.
And the one thing this week, we did get a nice global warming meme here of the fire burning in the ocean from the Gulf of Mexico. This is run by a Mexican-owned petroleum company. So the government of Mexico, Pemex, I believe, is the company owned by the state. And yeah, it's burning. And you have like these 3 boats around there feebly trying to put fire on, and it really does sort of symbolize to me like man's attempt to control global warming. Like we create these problems and then we feebly go out there and try to fix them.
Yeah. The I also there was I feel like there was some euphemistic coverage around that, particularly if everything was about the fire has been extinguished, not stating whether or not they went and fixed the massive leaking gas pipeline in the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico. No, that's probably still definitely leaking. It's just no longer on fire.
Yeah, I mean, like we haven't heard anything or seen
Like
any sort of video. Like, I mean,
they
if you
pumped
remember,
they diverted nitrogen through it to help put the fire out. I'm doubting any of the, like, any kind of cleanup or any capping, any containment has been undertaken by Pemex.
I mean, I'm not a big seafood eater, but following the Deepwater Horizon incident back in 2012, I mean, I basically was like, I'm never going to eat shrimp from the Gulf of Mexico
Ooh,
ever
yeah,
again. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that hits your market a lot more than it would mine.
And this one same thing, like this really just sort of codifies. I will never eat fucking shrimp from the Gulf of Mexico ever again. Like I may eat shrimp again, but like it will be like when I move to, like if I move to Maine, I will eat shrimp from the North Atlantic, because I don't have to sit there and go like, oh, what about those oil spills in the Gulf? Like, you know, that shrimp would be from the North Atlantic. Maybe it'll have its own problems or whatever, and I'll find out about those. But you don't have these 2 glaring ones that have made international news.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's kick it off with the best way to kick off Independence Day, a remembrance of Donald Rumsfeld. For those who go to patreon.com/DWATG, I'm going to get my plug in here. You're going to see the slate, which features this bizarre and yet also fantastic Ben Garrison cartoon. I am going to throw it up here. Look at this.
Ben Garrison is smoking on that shit that killed Donald Rumsfeld.
I mean, like, there's so much going on in this cartoon. I have stared at this for an extended period of time. Garrison, of course, makes sure to take that extra Ben Garrison step and finger Donald Rumsfeld for 9/11 as well as the Iraq War. You know, because Garrison's like actually pretty low key conspiratorial. Like he's pretty New World Ordery.
I really wanted some like names on St. Peter's book, and then or like some I was looking to see if there was something in small point there, but
the other thing is it's a big book. Like you would think Ben Garrison's exactly the type of person who thinks that like most people are fucking horrible people and would never make it into heaven, and only like the minute few people who fit into Garrison's worldview.
It's a list of 6 names. St. Peter does it on his fingers.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Any thoughts on Rummy, broadly speaking?
I mean, good riddance. He had a long and storied career from the from I believe the Ford administration. All like he was involved in just chicanery for decades. I'm glad to have not heard about him for a very long time, and I'm glad to hopefully never hear about him again.
I echo all of that. Like Donald Rumsfeld's actual career is one that deserves broad scorn. That being said, and I like this is not about to turn around into some sort of weird disqualification of like, don't worry, Donald Rumsfeld's actually great. No, one thing I will say about this guy that has actually forever altered my way of thinking about things is his idea of there being known knowns, known unknowns, known unknowns, and or unknown knowns and unknown unknowns. This idea of dividing knowledge into four different discrete chunks. Like as someone who like studied Karl Popper and got really into like the how do we know wing of philosophy back in college. Rumsfeld, as someone I always viewed as like a deep political enemy, when he like threw this like sort of idea down, it's very heady. And it's a very sort of like, I mean, yes, it's funny to go unknown, no, known, unknown, no, 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 unknown, unknown. Like it that you can make fun of how you keep repeating the same two words, or you can like engage with this idea that there are things that we actually know, and we know that we know them. Like we have facts and we verified those facts. There are things that we actually know based off of all the knowledge that we have here, and we just don't realize that we have that. Essentially it's not discovered yet, but it's things that we actually already know.
We have it all sitting there. We just haven't pareidolia it together. We haven't seen the pattern in the waving grass.
Yeah. We have the things that we know that we don't know about yet. Which there are all sorts of things. Like, I mean, we can apply this to our own life. Suppose you have a significant other who disappears on the weekend for large hours of time, and you can't get a hold of them. And you know, like that would be a known unknown. You know that you can't get a hold of this person. What you don't know yet is what is it that they've been up to, and why won't they talk to you about it? That would be a known unknown. And then you have the unknown unknown, which would be like this person's actually Dracula. Like what you don't realize is that like this person is, you know, actually from another planet, or is like a super lot, you know, what, not getting jokey about it, but like he blocks knowledge into these four tracks, and I found it a really useful matrix to understand any number of problems up to and including recent episodes. And like that's one thing about Rumsfeld and his weird contribution to American politics that like I think will persist beyond all of the other horrible real world effects. Like that thinking I think will stick with us for a long time because it's a very sort of clear way of thinking about problems.
He exists in, I mean, that philosophical bit, or that metaphysical bit, I guess that's like a metaphysical
theory of knowledge
exercise, or theory of knowledge. He exists for me in a pantheon of very intelligent individuals whom I wholeheartedly dislike with most of my being, along with like Richard Nixon, like was not a dumb guy. Henry Kissinger, not a dumb guy. Do I really think that there are a lot of people in the world that wish they were not, or had not been for the extent that they were? Yeah, like they can be both very intelligent and or very their analysis wasn't always wrong. They just oftentimes made the most monstrous decisions with that information.
Yeah, I guess,
or made more monstrous decisions than I would have liked.
Yeah, It's just I guess I have like a weird grudging respect for anyone who can take philosophy and actually apply it in the real world, because I always find that to be like the philosopher's burden, especially the political philosopher's burden. You sit in your freaking classroom and you think about this, that, and the way things ought to be, and have a really hard time actually enacting it in the real world. And in that, to that extent, and also because I do think like the four blocks are kind of maybe fundamentally correct ways of thinking about knowledge. Yeah, I'm not like rest in peace, Donald Rumsfeld. I just like I wanted to note that because like I mean
That was a very, it was a very incisive, or very incisive, is that what I'm looking for? Insightful comment that he made to justify some real bullshit.
I know that's a really crazy thing
Like,
too. Is he just sort of threw that out there, and it was like this really at the time too. The press was making fun of it, like, "Oh yeah, that's ridiculous." Like, no, actually, that's kind of heady shit.
yeah,
What he's doing, that's bullshit. Yeah, like yeah, he's
it was
doing heady shit.
prime sophistry, prime sophistry.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
have you ever? Hey guys, I know you're real concerned about like the escalating war and whatever, but have you ever considered about what you don't know?
Yeah,
How do you know what you don't know?
So the history lesson
Man?
here, for those who don't remember, is that he was using this in defense of like we need to invade Iraq to get the weapons of mass destruction. So like with the unknown is where the weapons of mass destruction are, how many of them they have.
We had already gotten some reports about like difficulties in finding them, like the dog wagging effort had failed a little bit.
So the things we knew is that like Saddam, theoretically, like in a blue sky world where like you could just wave a magic wand, like Saddam would obviously want weapons. Yeah, like
we knew we gave him weapons of mass destruction in the 80s. What happened to them since? That is a known
That's
unknown.
a known unknown. That's a known unknown.
We know there are weapons of mass destruction. We don't know what he did with them, other than some stuff with the Kurds.
Yeah,
horrible stuff with the Kurds.
Yeah.
Not just some stuff. Chemical
the
warfare.
unknown known is does Saddam still want these weapons? Is he trying to get them now? And the unknown is if he has them, where are they hiding? Yeah, no, I mean that's the thing with Rumsfeld is it underneath this is I guess here's the other lesson. Donald Rumsfeld is the perfect lesson how philosophy can be twisted to do really like horrible things, and good philosophy can be twisted to justify really bad political thinking, really bad political actions and stuff.
I mean, that was the whole, yeah. He was a very good sophist. He really got down on his BS. It's almost like he went to law school.
All right, so next, I was about to go like, well, Donald Rumsfeld, but Donald Rumsfeld. The Supreme Court here is setting the table for the next term, and boy, do I not feel good about things, because they left a bad taste in my mouth here. I'm going to read 3 bits of headlines, and then we will discuss. Supreme Court upheld a pair of restrictive election laws in Arizona, overturning a lower court ruling that found the laws discriminated against minority voters. The Arizona laws invalidate ballots that are cast in the wrong precinct, and the ban known as ballot harvesting, in which third-party community groups or campaigns collect and return other people's ballots. Democrats argued that the data showed that the restrictions disproportionately affected voters of color, which would be a violation of the Voting Rights Act. Writing for the majority, Sam Alito said that the law requires, quote, equal openness to the voting process, and that, quote, a mere inconvenience cannot be enough to demonstrate a violation of the law. Next, in another ruling, the Supreme Court struck down a California law that required charities and nonprofits to disclose their top donors. Under the law, the tax-exempt groups are required to report the names and addresses of all donors who give more than $5,000 or 2% of of the organization's total donations. Conservative groups challenged the state disclosure agreements. They did this with Americans for Prosperity, saying the information was protected under the First Amendment's freedom of association and that the disclosure could lead to harassment. For those of you who remember the old ruling where Kennedy wrote about how money could be free speech, one of the things that Kennedy said is that we could see who was doing the speaking. And so, in this sense, it is like not hidden free speech, like it is. There's a way to actually monitor that. And now, of course, this conservative court is coming back around and striking that down. Conservative groups challenge the state disclosure agreements. Oh, I got to that already.
Didn't Kavanaugh write the opinion on that one?
Ooh, you know what? That's not in my blurb here, but he very well might have.
That's some drama.
I mean, Alito writing the other one, like it really makes you worry. Okay, if John Roberts, God help us, leaves the court, Sam Alito could theoretically be the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court at some point. And that is a very, very, very scary Supreme Court. You do not want a Sam Alito Chief Justice Supreme Court, because like he will move that conservative bloc so right, and Roberts is a true believer. But it'd be bad. Last, this sounds like good news, but it's about to be bad news. I'll explain why here in a second. No fun on Independence Day. The Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas suggested that federal laws against the sale and cultivation of marijuana may no longer make sense, as the court declined to hear the appeal of a Colorado medical marijuana dispensary that was denied federal tax breaks. Thomas, one of the most conservative justices on the court, wrote that, quote, prohibition of marijuana may no longer be necessary or proper to support the federal government's piecemeal approach. And Thomas added that, quote, the federal government's current approach is half in, half out as a regime, and that simultaneously forbids and tolerates the local use of marijuana. So essentially, Thomas is saying that he'd be okay to send weed back to the states. And here's what I worry about, Dan, that they're going to want to send something else back to the states at the same time. And that other thing they'll send back to the states will be abortion.
Yep.
Yeah.
And voting rights and everything that they possibly can.
So that's an interesting point too. HR 1 becomes an interesting law for them, I think, to pass, specifically to have the court test it. I think it would be very clarifying as an exercise. It's I don't want to be like, let's force the vote here. I'm saying let's test the court here.
Are they going to go back and strike down the Voting Rights Act, or like?
Let's heat check them on this. You know what I mean? No,
I don't want to heat check them because it might come out the wrong. There's a good chance it's going to come out the wrong way.
This is.
Don't let them know. If we stand real still, they won't see the voting rights.
The Americans for Prosperity Challenge, that I think alone tells you how this is going to play out from now on. You're going to have Americans for Prosperity, Citizens United style cases coming up through this conservative court pipeline. And when they come up through the conservative court pipeline, there will be, with this 6-3 majority, the ability for them to play the media and play the Sunday talk show circuit with this, ooh, Gorsuch broke away here. Oh, Clarence Thomas signaled that he's open to doing this over here. And occasionally you'll have two conservative justices, but it's the same thing I'm going to grouse about with Joe Manchin here. It's a form of gatekeeping, and it's them positioning themselves as a gatekeeper. And in this case, they're throwing just enough carrots and just enough little narrative breadcrumbs to set the table for what they really are there to do, which is send Roe versus Wade back to the states. Like they are there to strike down abortion. It was the deal that fundamentalist Christian conservatives made with their Mike Pence and Donald Trump. Like, there have been so many political deals made within the Republican Party around the conservative Christian fundamentalist evangelical movement here, that it would beggar belief to imagine this court not ultimately sending Roe versus Wade back to the states and making abortion effectively illegal as federal law.
I, as apolitical and above the politics as they're allegedly supposed to be,
Breyer tells me
I
so.
I think it'll be it'll be more death by a thousand cuts a year. Like they're gonna, I mean, I guess that's what throwing it back to the states is. They're not like the Supreme Court isn't going to like say like, all right, we're overturning Roe versus Wade and making abortion illegal nationwide. Like it'll get thrown back to the states and it'll be a local issue. But I couldn't see them doing it all at once. I couldn't see it, and not until they're not going to make that ruling until 2023.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean,
they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it before the midterms. They saw the way that worked out.
I see. Here's the thing: you have these enterprising governors.
They might not do it till 2025. Like, I could see them.
I don't think Ken Paxton, for example, like look at the Florida AG, look at the Texas State AG. Paxton in particular, like, and especially with Allen West now running for governor and stuff. I mean, like, there's a real crazy streak here in Texas, and Texas is really happy to take the lead here in Republican politics. I think you do see this get to the court, and here's the other thing that the 6-3 majority allows for that's scary: cert. Because with cert, you need 4. And now, like, you'll have Alito, you have theoretic on this one, Amy Coney Barrett for sure is guaranteed cert vote. So is Kavanaugh. So now it's like, okay, Roberts is maybe a no on this. Sure. Gorsuch? And then, of course, our friend, Clarence Thomas. That's 4. You've got 4 to get this thing. And I think Thomas, too, seeing the finish line in his judicial career, does want to deliver this. The one wild card here is Clarence Thomas, and if they wait too long on this, they have a timetable on this, and Clarence Thomas could Ruth Bader Ginsburg the conservatives here, and swing this back to a 5-4 majority.
Well, speaking
back to a 5-4 conservative slight majority.
Speaking of not seeing or seeing the end of one's judicial career, Justice Breyer picking up a full slate of clerks for the next term.
I hate this guy. I hate this guy.
What the hell is he thinking, Chris?
I hate him. And like everyone who I, for some reason, thought I was like picking on Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I hope Justice Breyer makes it really clear that I just hate this action, and it does not matter who you are, that you should not be doing this, that this is clearly wrong, and it's even more wrong now that RBG demonstrated just months ago, not even 1 year ago, how wrong it was. It's even more wrong now. So actually, I hate Breyer more. I think Breyer, he sucks. I hate this guy.
Was it Politico or The Atlantic that had that literally wrote the same story, like, don't pressure Ruth Bader Ginsburg to retire, or like, it's messed up to pressure Ruth Bader Ginsburg to retire? They did the exact they got a different journalist, but it was the same publication. I don't have it in front of me, but it was either The Atlantic or Politico. I'm inclined to say The Atlantic, but
I can't stand it. Like 80 there's most businesses would see no reason to have an 80-plus-year-old CEO, and I don't know, especially those who think that we should run government like a business, right? I don't like why would we have an 80-year-old CEO? It beggars belief. But right now
they got blackmail on the rest of the board.
So actually, okay. Let me kick it to the slate here, because that gets us into a story that I think is worth bringing up here now. Oh, I do have it next. The White House calls Sha'Carri Richardson, quote, an inspiring woman, but stops short of opposing the suspension. Press Secretary Jen Psaki called suspended U.S. sprinter Sha'Carri Richardson, quote, an inspiring woman on Friday, but did not call the U.S. anti-doping agency, or did not call on the U.S. anti-doping agency to reverse its decision, disqualifying her from competing in the 100-meter dash at the Tokyo Olympics, saying, quote, this was an independent decision made by the U.S. anti-doping agency and not a decision that would be made by the U.S. government, as is appropriate, and we will certainly leave them the space and the room to make their decisions about anti-doping policies that need to be implemented. Psaki said when asked if President Joe Biden wants to see Richardson be able to represent the United States in the Tokyo Olympics. Psaki added that Richardson is, quote, an inspiring woman who has been through a lot in her personal life, and that she is one of the fastest women in the world, quote, and that's an important part of this story as well. Meanwhile, the worst person you know, Matt Gaetz, the modern day millennial Roy Moore, said earlier on Friday, Dan, these quotes, I cannot believe that Matt Gaetz is about to make several really, really strong points, nearly word perfect in a row. I hate that I'm about to have to read this, but I have to read this. Matt Gaetz said earlier on Friday that he opposes Sprinter Richardson's suspension over a positive marijuana test, pushing Joe Biden to do the same. Quote, the press who love to bathe in the intersectionality of race, gender, sports should ask Joe Biden if he believes Sha'Carri Richardson should be barred from representing America for using a drug legal in most states that doesn't impact performance. Matt Gaetz added, I sure as hell don't. Later Friday afternoon, Gaetz highlighted the generational divide over marijuana policy by tweeting an AP story with the snarky comments, okay, boomers, quote, how come nobody's asking Joe Biden and Kamala Harris for their perspective on this? American athlete who is not able to represent our country because of a substance that doesn't impact performance and is illegal in most of our states. Referencing the woke press, what's wrong with America? What has happened to us? Like, are we simultaneously so woke and tied up in cancel culture that we wouldn't allow this woman to represent our country? This is it's a nightmare. Joe Biden has just like went out of his way to be absolutely awful on this particular issue.
Absolutely. When these are the kinds of things that you kind of run into when you don't really want to be like ideologically consistent or have a cohesive policy beyond like a focus testing.
Okay, so here is where
which on those numbers they are underwater on this position.
So this is where we have the disagreement, or maybe I'll move you around to my position relatively quickly here. I think Joe Biden authentically believes this, and I think we have like a particular like a fairly striking body of evidence that this is like Obama on gay marriage, where you will earnestly have to like move him on this, and you'll never actually fully. I think Obama finally changed his mind. I don't know that Joe Biden will ever change his mind on this, but he's made it clear with the White House staffers through this that like he believes that smoking marijuana is morally bad. And if you are smoking marijuana, you are a morally bad person, and that there is not a way to enjoy marijuana in the same sort of morally neutral, have a beer on the 4th of July sort of thing. Like Joe Biden does not believe in that world. I think the only way to account for his position down the board here is just that Biden does not believe that marijuana is good, and believes that it's actually a good thing that it's illegal.
I mean, he does. There is a Hunter Biden in the room there. Like he did have a son who experienced substance abuse issues. And I mean, it's something I am a substance enthusiast. But I like the similar experiences within my social group. Like I understand people having a strong negative reaction to those sorts of things. The issue is Joe Biden trying to apply it on a national scale. And
we're not all Hunter Biden. No, I think that's a good point. Like, but I think that Joe Biden probably is really scarred by the Hunter Biden thing.
But I'm willing to bet that, like, I don't know, in Joe Biden's mind, we are all Hunter Biden, like a little bit.
There, but for the grace of God, go I as Hunter Biden. You know, I might be over in Ukraine getting paid $60,000 a month for my expertise on oil. Totally normal. No, so I think that's part of it, and I think the other part of the Biden, why is he so bad on this, like, explanation is he is a guy who got into the Senate, as in he was like born into the patrician class, but got into the Senate in like his early 30s and in the early 1970s. So he was just a little too old to be of age with the hippies and do the Woodstock thing. And besides, he was a patrician. He wasn't on that track anyways. Joe Biden has always been on the "you're going into the Senate, buddy." I mean, like, you don't like. I mean, people just go like, "Oh, wow, he was a young senator." No, that's like not an accident, right? Like that's a clear imprimatur of status that was bequeathed this dude, whether or not he actually deserved it.
But the banks got tired of paying for 70-year-olds who just croaked in a couple years. They needed to train somebody up who was going to sit in Delaware for the next 40 years and really represent their interests.
I mean, you know, in a way, it sort of makes sense, and yeah,
No, it was a good investment.
Look, like the whole Delaware thing, it makes perfect sense. We got to sort of ties into that. It makes perfect sense unless you actually, you know, do something to change the law about the shell corporations in Delaware, right? One other thing though about Richardson, and I guess this gets back to, like, you know, Biden's clear moral judgment here, because like the people who are defending Biden are saying, well, he's saying that she's an exceptional runner, and she's saying that, like, she's an inspirational story, but like Richardson's story about why she was using this weed is that she was grieving the death of her mother. And like when my grandfather died, the what if you like go to my YouTube channel is pictured there. Like, I was a wasted mess through that entire weekend. Like, I was like I was blasted delivering his eulogy. I mean, this is part of the grieving process. People sometimes abuse substances during the acute grieving process of a loved one. It doesn't mean they're on tilt. And more importantly, getting really drunk or getting really high is not doping. It, you know, like that the value judgment that Psaki sort of quietly makes is that, like, the anti-doping agency is right to call marijuana dope, a term that, like, basically no one has used since the 80s.
As someone who was a both high school and college athlete, in track and field, I was highly proselytized to about the horrible effects that marijuana would have upon my athletic performance.
That's a great point. Did we mention that this is smoking?
Yeah.
This is smoking. So we're calling smoking performance enhancement. Like,
for the sprinter.
If she had smoked cigarettes, she would put more foreign substances into her body, and that would be perfectly legal, according to the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency.
Absolutely.
No, I mean, it is absolute cowardice by the White House to not take a position on this. And now I will play the game that will get somewhat tedious, but I do think is clarifying as an exercise. Let us imagine just quickly if Trump was president and all of this was happening.
Oh, man.
I think he would revel in scolding Richardson. You know what I mean? Like, you go like, those are the rules. Those are, you know, she shouldn't have been doing that.
Yeah, he is such a teetotaler. I mean, but Trump going off and lecturing anybody about, like, going off on the rules. I mean, not that hypocrisy.
But remember, she's black. Hypocrisy was the Central Park 5 rule. The Central Park 5 rule says it doesn't have to make sense. Like, you're guilty even of the worst thing if you're black.
He'll never spare a chance to be condescending to somebody of a different skin color. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. So no, I think I was thinking about that. I couldn't get all the way there to painting you a full picture, but like, yeah, Biden is out of step with his own party on marijuana policy. Polling shows a strong majority of Americans favor legalization. Biden has resisted such calls because he likes to play the game on hard. And his administration has refused to reschedule the drug, which the federal government considers an illegal substance with no medicinal value. Biden did, however, call for the decriminalization of marijuana during his successful 2020 presidential campaign, begging the question, like, what does that mean? And why aren't you doing anything about it? After he assumed office, 5 White House staffers lost their jobs because they admitted to smoking marijuana, a thing that this article sort of omitted. During the screening process, they were told, go ahead, if you smoked weed, just admit it. We just want to make sure you're honest on this stuff. And they're all like, yeah, like we're in politics and we smoke weed and like listen to podcasts and shit. And we live in, and all of those people live in states where it was legal, and the White House didn't care about that. Once again, it's a moral judgment. It's a moral judgment. It doesn't matter if it's legal.
And I mean, I'm not sure if you hit on it while I ducked away for a second, but Kamala Harris smoked weed. Kamala Harris has been open about the fact that she smoked weed.
And
Kamala Harris has actually been.
She's
tried to be too. She's made up weird stories about smoking weed. She's so open about smoking weed. Like, it's just very.
Has this whole history about listening to Tupac albums that weren't even out yet and smoking weed to them. Yes, she was so into saying that she smoked weed that she told stories that almost certainly are not true because they're not possible about smoking weed. And this is happening to, like, let's not mince words, a black athlete. Harris is standing back and going, well, like, I'll let Jen Psaki and Joe Biden take the lead on this one. And you wonder, okay, she's gonna get a pass on this one for sure, but if a couple more things like this happen, how long before this actually starts to put a little bit of heat on Harris? And there, yeah, like, or Harris actually starts to rift. Because, like, for example, Black Lives Matter is not going away. Defund the police type of issues, police brutality issues are not going away. Harris is going to be tested, and if Biden continues to be like a marijuana Luddite, that's like not actually a thing, but like, although I'm now picturing a man angrily smashing pot plants, and it's very funny. Pulling them all out furiously. But when does Harris break away from him? I mean, I don't know when. I just
never.
You just rise and dies.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's ever I don't think there's a rising tide. I mean, circumstances could certainly change. He could become very unpopular and she could see the way the wind's blowing and change. But I mean, she's a chameleon, and the fact that she is at this level is purely because she turned around, she played the game, and she got on board. I don't think she has. I don't know that she stays at this level if she steps off the Biden ship.
So, yeah, I'm with you. Like, the whole, I think you're ultimately right. I asked.
I mean, she lost to Pete, and she lost to everybody. She came in fifth. She came in fifth in her home state.
California, like let's say 10 people were in the California primary, right? I think Harris finishes no better than 4th or 5th. I'm not trying to be like a dick or whatever. Like, I saw absolutely no evidence that Harris could finish better than 4th or 5th in that race. She absolutely loses.
Well, I mean, but it's because, like, California is a very progressive state on the whole, like, taken as the whole state, and you had at least 2 much more progressive candidates, and then you had an actual real an established, like, the establishment choice in Joe Biden. So, like, right there, she's not even touching it. So
Yeah, no, I feel you. So let's talk about someone I've been happy to not talk about, but like it's time to start talking about him again. He's back. Donald Trump is like Jaws in the summer on the
Dun
4th of
dun
July.
dun
Dun,
dun
yeah, coming
dun
for
dun. Yeah.
Ron. Yeah, because that Trump shark is a coming for Ron DeSantis here. Trump is back. He's doing rallies. He is leaning into the 1-6 stuff. The way the media is covering him, they're going back to their bad habits. They're like, no one's attending these rallies, except that, like, no, a lot of people were attending these rallies. Like he had a lot of people at this one here over the weekend. And he's like doing the "Who Shot Ashley Babbitt" thing, which is not some sort of 1930s film noir, but in fact, like leaning into 1-6 conspiracy theories and venerating the protesters who invaded the Capitol on 1-6.
That's gonna get real weird with his Back the Blue stuff, like the Venn diagram of Back the Blue. Well, actually, I mean, the coherence of those concepts isn't necessarily very tidy, but like
we had a big
theoretically,
we had a chat earlier today about how this stuff doesn't actually have to fit together. Like when we were talking about oil shit, right? Like in the group thread, like the one thing about this particular Republican Party is cognitive dissonance, and even the highlighting of cognitive dissonance. It's simply it is not fruitful in the way that, broadly speaking, the liberal and left mind might find it to be. That there's just really no other way of putting it other than uh Republicans aren't receptive to that. They don't care that Trump says this and Trump says that. Like, they're going to blame Joe Biden for high prices at the gas pump, and it doesn't matter that those high prices are exactly why their 401k and their stock holdings in companies like Exxon and Shell are up. And that in order for those stock prices to be up, and thus their dividends to be up, and thus their overall net worth to be up in a way that completely offsets their gas price, it's actually good for them to be paying more at the pump. It's an indicator that things are going well. Like, they'll blame them. I mean, I was just talking to, let's say, a family member, and he said, he was grousing about this stuff just today. These things happen.
yeah.
I mean, Trump is back. He's doing these rallies. And the other thing that happened this week that I think really solidifies that Trump is running again, although he told Hannity, he did Hannity too, and he's like, I've made a decision about 2024, which I think he's running. He's going to run. Here's why it's always been a foregone conclusion to me. Because they realized in 2016 accidentally that having a campaign as a business, because of the way campaign finance laws are written in America, it's one of the biggest fucking cons in the book. Andrew Yang kind of started to put this together too.
Especially if you own a bunch of like event venues. Like, the amount of self-dealing you can do as a hotel owner, like if you own expo centers, if you own, I mean, but that was Trump's whole grift. Like before he joined the Trump organization, it was his dad's business selling the new appliances into all of the Trump org apartment buildings. Like it's always that self-dealing has always been a real staple of the Trump organization, and the politics is the ultimate for that.
Yeah, and I mean, you probably remember this too. The younger set of the crowd won't remember this, but Colbert, back when he was doing the Colbert Report, made a super PAC. Remember this? And like that was super instructive of just how easy it is to route around all these campaign finance laws. And Colbert was basically always making the point that like it's really only going to take someone to sort of like nakedly grift the shit out of this for this to be very dangerous.
Well, I mean, really, they're leaving money on the table by Eric or Don Jr. not actually owning a media company that's doing the ad buys. That's literally just like taking 5% off the top to do the ad buys through another company. But it's just the America
point,
super
I
great.
bet you they finished the OAN deal. If they're doing that OAN deal, I bet you they finish that OAN deal specifically so that they can do that, because I don't think there's anything to preclude them from doing ad buys on OAN. If Eric Trump is just a board member, so long as Eric Trump is not a member of the campaign, or maybe that's where Don puts Don Jr. specifically. So he's like, Don, I need, as part of the job, I can't talk to you. I so much, son, so much.
It's just gonna be Don Jr. down in the basement, Dad, have you seen my stapler?
Mr. Trump,
Completely.
Mr. Trump, I'm doing a good job over here at your TV network, sir. Please, son, call me Mr. Trump. All right, so the other thing that happened this week that I think really solidifies that Trump is running this time is that the new case coming down from New York is, being frank after reviewing it, not very strong. And it's a head scratcher to me, because I go back to the AOC Michael Cohen testimony, and it seems to me Michael Cohen and AOC laid out a pretty clear pathway to put together the crimes that Donald Trump and Alan Weisselberg have been doing with asset valuation and devaluation. They would overvaluate and overinflate the value of assets and tax documents to get bigger write-offs, and then they would devalue those same assets. It struck me as weird that at this point, the Manhattan DA has not even been able to get Weisselberg to flip. Weisselberg has pled not guilty to these charges, which means he is not cooperating. And then, kind of more alarming here is that Trump is not named in any of these documents, so they're not even prosecuting against Trump. So we have a few things here. One, that they didn't really get the AOC Michael Cohen spectrum of stuff, the asset valuation, the asset devaluation stuff. Two, that they weren't able to flip Alan Weisselberg.
Weisselberg's not guilty verdict was really not guilty plea was really the nail for me. Like, if he thinks he's gonna fight this, he's not. We're talking
not
about
a stupid man.
Yeah, he's not a stupid man. It's a stupid. Smart people who I fundamentally disagree with. He's not that dumb.
He's the guy who is actually running the ship here. Donald Trump doesn't understand fucking shit, guys. You know this. I know that you listening know this. Weisselberg understands this whole operation. And this whole way down, the one person who Trump has been making sure to financially seed along the way, taking care of his grandkids, taking care of Weisselberg, and this is a notoriously stingy dude, a guy who declares bankruptcy rather than paying back debts. The one person who has always been taking care of his Weisselberg. Trump owns Weisselberg, I think, and Weisselberg gets that, what the U.S. federal government and the New York state government can't give Weisselberg anything that Trump can't give Weisselberg. And if they don't have much, and it seems like they don't, because if they really had a lot, they would have flipped Weisselberg.
I'm wondering if there's a lot of this, a lot that's statute of limitation stuff. I don't know, probably even post. Some of the foreign development deals might be a little bit fishy, but a lot of that's probably happening on foreign soil with banks that aren't in the United States. And from post Apprentice, a lot of his money was probably somewhat legit. He probably didn't have to, he probably wasn't breaking as much.
So that's actually the era where I have some of the biggest questions.
Okay.
So he's doing The Apprentice, but during that era, he also starts buying golf courses in Ireland and stuff, and buying them all cash. And everyone at the time is commenting, this is very strange. People don't purchase real estate like this often. And he's sitting there going like, I'm doing it all cash. Sort of like, it's weird. Like, it's like I'm cheating at cards and like just sort of announcing it. Like, I'm really good at cheating at cards. No, so that's really fishy. He also, in his Florida properties, this is when a large number of people from Soviet bloc countries start renting out floors, and we start seeing entire floors of Florida apartment buildings rented out, just so happens by people from like out of the country, all from the same part of the world, and it happens to be proximate to Russia. So there are some interesting questions, but to your point,
But
I wonder if statute of limitations is run out, let's say, on the Ireland transactions at absolute minimum, because those would be from 2006 or 2007. That's like 15 years.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of those foreign investment deals, I don't know, they may be sitting in like very purposefully sitting in a very gray area for the benefit of New York and San Francisco and Portland and Seattle and Chicago.
Like I agree. Like, look, I want to be clear. Just because I am cynical about New York's case does not believe that I don't believe that Trump has committed some serious criminal acts throughout the course of his career. It's like very obvious he did. And even if they're not illegal, like as we were saying, the gray area where it's like necessarily not quite illegal, like shady, immoral, clearly wrong. Yeah,
absolutely, 100% shady. Absolute, very much. But it's also like it's New York, New Jersey politics. Like there isn't a deal that isn't covered in grease. Like. Sliding through there.
I mean, it's even this real estate stuff. Real estate is an asset, as we're seeing right now in the American market, that's like super fungible, and like you can, and we've seen this already. We're old enough that we remember 2008. And I feel like I'm kind of living through a play out of that again 15 years later here right now. I'm very worried about this housing market. It's why I'm not getting in. But like real estate's super easy to inflate. And right now what we're seeing like investment hedge funds and sort of groups coming in and buying up entire blocks and inflating the value of those blocks, Monopoly style. If you ever played Monopoly, they're essentially doing the Monopoly play. I wonder if they sit there with the board and go like, all right, we got to get Laurel Avenue next. Maybe they got that idea from the board, but real estate, this works great for Trump. And this kind of goes back to Manafort. Remember, Manafort was buying rugs, another great piece of asset that you can absolutely inflate. I mean, a world that I live in, guitars are an asset that you can 100% inflate.
All fine art.
Art, I mean, super easy to inflate. Yeah. And the laws around this are really suspect. Here, I'll give you a quick example. I buy a Les Paul. I'm just gonna live in my world. $2,000 ish, right? You know, that's it's okay price for Les Paul. Let's say it's like a Les Paul special, nice one. Let's say Dan goes, Chris, that's a fantastic Les Paul. I'm gonna pay you $5,000 for it. And I agree to sell this Les Paul that the market value clearly says is $2,000 to Dan for $5,000. There is nothing illegal about that.
Yeah.
Except that you probably have some questions. You might be thinking, Chris, it seems like there's an unknown known here, or a known unknown here that I need to, the known unknown is, why did Dan agree to pay way more than market value for this Les Paul that Chris Novembrino owned?
And it's because we have a guitar reselling business on the side, and that $3,000 gets reported as profit and added value to that guitar. So even though I am out $5,000, I'm only out maybe I get to recoup part of that inflated value, and then I get to borrow against that nice $5,000 guitar that is now one of my assets.
Yeah, I get to show. Yeah, in the case of your business, you get to show that as a loss too. You
Yeah.
get to basically say that was a cost of doing business. So you now have a $5,000 write off. You have this $2,000 instrument, and if we're in cahoots together, which we could well be, I could just circle the 3,000 back to you. Like this becomes an absolute minimum a way for Dan to launder his money. That is illegal. But in order to prove that, it takes a lot of effort. I mean, this is why our friend Matt Gaetz, a hero of the show, is not in jail right now, even though there are Venmo payments that clearly correlate to payments rendered for sexual services. It's actually still really tricky to prove in a court of law that is what is happening. And real estate offers a tremendous opportunity to launder money. And fine art, fine rugs, guitars, collectibles, baseball.
Appliances, which was the part of the Trump org's early gig.
He used to do a big one. Yes. What's the tax gimmick with appliances that's called?
You're in any like improvements that you're making to apartments that you own, you're able to write off those expenses. And so he would get cheap appliances, he would resell them through a company, and like the inflated price that he paid for all of those appliances, he could write off. And then he made the profit off of those inflated prices, or off of those inflated appliances.
I mean, like this is the sort of genius of the Trump grift here. And so if New York and the Democratic machine in New York doesn't have better than this, Trump is gonna be their nominee again. And I think DeSantis is coming to grips with this reality, and I think DeSantis needs to be thinking about the Veep stakes. And right now, he's acting like a guy who's not thinking about the Veep stakes, but is still hanging on to a wing and a prayer. And what I mean by this specifically in regards to DeSantis is DeSantis didn't want Trump to have the rally. And then when Trump had the rally, DeSantis decided that he wasn't going to show up. And then he also had this meeting with Joe Biden this week where he's all like, thank you, Joe Biden. You've been doing a great job. We've been working really well. And I think here's where I think Trump starts to work the angle. Trump will be like, we used to be good at building buildings. These buildings here in Florida, they're not very good. They're not well built. I used to stand out there and, like talk about the old pictures of him standing at the building sites and stuff. Where's Ron DeSantis? He's not down at the buildings. I'll rebuild them. You know, it'd be the ultimate Trump move. Trump offers to rebuild the buildings and forces DeSantis to go no to Trump. And when DeSantis says no to Trump, the Republican base will say no to Ron DeSantis. Once you scorn Trump on rebuilding the buildings, which, I mean, what are the odds that Trump makes that offer first?
I don't think I mean, it's smart, but I don't think they'll get there. I mean, it should be within his umbrella.
He's got like 6 months at least to make this offer.
It's the combination of him being both cheap and not dumb, but not like he's not like wily like that. Somebody may come to him with that idea. That would never be an organic thought that Trump would have.
Oh, no. 90s Trump, absolutely. 90s Trump would absolutely do this. I'm going to rebuild the ice skate rink. Remember that?
Okay.
Yeah, no, like that. That's very much in classic Trump's wheelhouse. Yeah, I think you're right. Old and tired Trump, COVID-brained Trump. I think that's not in his wheelhouse. I think someone would have to pitch that to him. But if like Don or Eric, who I think is the smart one of the two, I think that like if one of them gets that idea, I think that effectively does in Ron DeSantis. I'll put that at 30% to 40% chance. It's under 50% chance. I think ultimately he doesn't do that, but DeSantis is really treading on thin ice here. I don't think you can push yourself away from Donald Trump like this. And if before too long, Donald Trump's going to start attacking him.
Trump coming down, like DeSantis was loving Trump up in Ohio. Like, I mean, maybe not loving it if he wants him to, if he's trying to occupy that lane, but like Trump coming down and playing in his neck of the woods is just bad news. Like the news cycle coming to Florida is bad news for
I
Ron
mean, that's
DeSantis.
the other thing. So, like, you know, and Trump's sort of playing this coin, like, well, I just happen to have a hotel here in Mar-a-Lago's out here in Florida. But like, Trump knows what he's doing. Trump knows that he's making DeSantis make decisions here.
What's gonna happen like during like hurricane season in Florida? Like if Trump makes a decision to do it and he goes down to like a hurricane before DeSantis gets a chance to get down there or something, like,
oh my God, if Mar-a-Lago gets
or he starts just throwing toilet paper or throwing rolls of paper towels at Floridians.
If Mar-a-Lago gets hit with a hurricane and DeSantis does not mobilize the entirety of Florida's state resources to help rebuild Mar-a-Lago, a historical site, which is part of Trump's tax write-off game on Mar-a-Lago as well. If DeSantis like leaves Trump on an island with Mar-a-Lago, oh, there is going to be hell to pay. And I'm not talking about Trump's hair. I hate that joke. I had to make it because it just happened to come up organically there. But no, there's going to be a serious reckoning with this. DeSantis is peaked too early. I saw that article about, is Ron DeSantis the new Ronald Reagan? The answer, of course, is like, lol, no. But more importantly, the second I saw that, I was like, oh no, this guy's done. This guy's done. The conservatives, the respectable conservatives are trying to make him happen.
Trump
is going to.
That's like
this guy.
That's a September 2023 like headline or something. Like that's when you want that if you're actually you're trying to take a shot at it.
Yeah, you want that. Yes, you want that headline. Actually, later, if the last election cycle is any sort of story, getting the good headlines even in July or through September of that like year prior to the election, that could be bad. That could be peaking too early. DeSantis, is he the new Reagan as he's leaving office or whatever? Maybe like right at the start of his campaign. Or conversely, right in January of election year 2024. But no, this moment, this DeSantis moment, it is over. And I think also just looking at Trump this week, this guy's running. He's running. I don't see a way for Republicans to not embrace him. They have no way of doing that. They refuse to distance themselves from 1-6. And this is also, to that point, I think it gets further to the Democrats needing to. I know Pelosi, I actually had this on the slide here real quick, but I don't even need the copy. Pelosi's impaneling a group to, a bipartisan commission on 1-6. It's going to have eight Democrats and 5 Republicans. And the Democrats need to go, 1-6 is Trump's fault. Trump encouraged 1-6, which is also beyond being politically smart and priming the pump for your political enemy in the next election, has the benefit of being fucking true. It's fucking true and true as fuck.
It's always nice when your messaging also, lines up with the truth. That's always like a real convenient thing that I really wish the Democrats would like lean into a little bit more often.
And if not them, someone in our caucus. I mean seriously,
somebody, for the love of God,
because yes, now at this point it is abundantly clear this is the political opponent next time. So they're gonna come to their senses. No, it's not gonna fucking happen. I'm sorry for anyone who believed that. No, they're coming to their senses. Donald Trump would not be the odds-on frontrunner right now.
That's McCarthy told anybody actually accepting that appointment that they would be stripped of their other committee positions.
And that is a guy who 5 years ago said that there are 2 people that he was for certain are on the payroll of Russia, and that was Dana Rohrabacher and Donald Trump. So has McCarthy come to his senses, or has McCarthy come to Donald Trump? I all the signs are there. All the signs are there. And so, I'm glad that they're doing this commission. I hope that if anything, this weekend maybe forces the Democrats to take the commission more seriously. That the politics of this will force the issue. My cat's having a sneezing fit over here. Yeah. Any other thoughts on the commission?
Uh, it'll be curious to see. I'm really hoping that they don't, like, I want them to, if they can't get the 5 Republicans, I want them to get 1 and impanel it with 9. Like, I don't want any concessions to try and get 5 or 4 more Republicans for the sake of unity or for the sake of bipartisanship. Like, if it's got to be like a train's leaving the station kind of thing. Like,
another fine point here as we're exiting the Trump section. Unity now, obviously a fucking pipe dream. The whole unity narrative is premised for those of you listening to the show who think I'm harsh on the centrist. I know there's a wing of there's a wing of listeners who feel that way. The whole unity idea is premised on the notion that the Republicans will eschew Donald Trump, move on to that, and embrace like a Ben Sass, it's sort of like nice guy, bad politics sort of thing going on here. That is not what is happening. If Trump runs again, it is impossible to have a dynamic wherein unity is possible. Unity is only possible within a paradigm. See what Yuffie just did to Hazy? That's unity with Donald Trump still in the Republican Party. The aggro-ness. Hazy here is the Democrats, shell-shocked, not even sure what's going on. Yuffie here, the feisty young Republicans, the millennial Republicans coming in and look, she's getting a little long in the tooth here. She looks good for her age, though. She's not, she's not Feinsteining it. She's not Feinsteining it. She's still, she's like the Elizabeth Warren, type of senior citizen here. Not, so sharp upstairs. Anyways, so where was I at? Unity impossible with Trump still on the scene. And unless and until, and they never will, it's now clear, unless, until, and never will, the Republicans disregard Trump and say, no more, enough of you, we're done. That's it. And Liz Cheney, they went after her. McCarthy's saying you're going to get in trouble if you're on the 1-6 commission to study terrorism on a domestic front.
She's the one they can't really strip of any committee. They can't. What are they going to do? Oust her more?
Right. But I say that with Kinzinger, and Mitt Romney. I mean, if Romney tries to run, Romney will get firmly rebuked by the primary base. Yeah. I mean, he might. Bill Kristol, and all those Never Trump Republicans are going to try one last feeble attempt to get their party back.
For 2024, have they what did they do to the primary schedule? Like, is it still going to be New Hampshire? I forget what is. I think that's still up in the air. I think they were trying to get New Hampshire and Iowa out of the pole position, and I forget where they came down on that.
That's interesting, and I bet you see some Trumpies come in and fight to keep it white AF in those early states because they know where their bread's buttered. And the other thing is, it's going to be hard. The Republicans are going to want to keep it white AF in those early states. Like they like Iowa. I actually think Trump could win Iowa. I think Trump could win Iowa and New Hampshire. And if Trump wins Iowa and New Hampshire, they're not going to stop him in South Carolina.
Yeah.
And even then, it would, then DeSantis would be doing a Rudy Giuliani, I'm all in Florida sort of defense. Not going to work. We know that plan doesn't work. You can't lose Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina. You have to win one of those 3. And ideally at least 2 of those 3.
You have to be in there swinging the entire time too.
Yes.
Even if you don't you could, well, I don't know. You got to win one of them. You got to win one of them. But you
have to win one of them, and you can go first, second, third. If you win Iowa second, New Hampshire third, and South Carolina, that's not ideal. You'll go like third, first, second. And then you're still very much in the race, and you might very well win the race ultimately. But yeah, you can't just wait around for Florida and be like, I'm back in it. I won Florida. Like
Yeah.
that's Americans don't look at the primaries like that. We're not an educated class like that. Yeah, that's a big thing. And Trump's rallies, they draw so strongly. If those early states, if he's running if the primaries are focused in early states, I think that really helps Trump because Trump's turnout machine is super strong. He
If
is
he's
good at that shit.
if he is on his 2 feet and drawing breath, like if he had a like a stroke and ended up with some like Bell's
Are we
Bell's
including
palsy
iron lung
or
here? Are we saying iron lung Trump can still win?
no,
Okay.
I think I think his projected vitality, as much as we don't necessarily see it.
What if it's a a really classy gold iron lung?
That would be fantastic. Or like he'll like just Trump in a golden like exo suit, that he would win in a second. It's like Nixon in Futurama.
Manages to still keep his gut, like he's got
Yeah.
mecha arms and stuff, but the gut's still there. All right, yeah, no. Anyways, Trump's running. No, unless he has. There's a decent amount of reporting that suggests that the COVID case that he had was pretty severe. Unless he has complications from COVID between now and when the primaries start, it's low likelihood. People, it's like when people tell me Biden's not running again. I go like we'd have to see it. Like you'd have to like really be seeing clear signs on that shit.
Trump really looked like shit in a couple of the first like the first pictures that were taken of him, kind of like outside of Mar-a-Lago, like outside of where he was really like after like the first couple rallies. There was a couple where he just looked very, very gaunt, very like dehydrated. Even just he did not look like his not that
you know what it
not
looked
that
like
he was like a picture
this
of
is really weird, and this is super speculative. I think he had like a neck tuck. I think I was looking because like you're talking about the one where his neck looks really weird, right? I think he was trying to do something about the waddle because that waddle was getting pretty substantial towards the tail end of his presidency, and I know Trump has commented on that on his own pictures. He doesn't like when he has a waddle.
Maybe there was a neck tuck. I didn't particularly look at. Maybe he did some cold sculpting.
But I'm not the guy for that, but
I mean, Joe Biden fairly obviously has had several facelifts and had things like it seems like they're just grabbing at the back of his head. And
what they did during the campaign, that Botox shit, what they put him on to start that campaign, they wound the clock back like 10 years. It was creepy how like effective it was. I was like,
he showed up real smooth.
So smooth, so like unreal smooth. It was quite a sight. All right. One other note here: Justice Department looking into Giuliani over lobbying for Turkish interests. This is a thing from the Trump years that just like continues to hang out there. We have Mike Flynn, his problematic relationship with Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the fact that he published an editorial going into the 2016 election talking about the importance of Turkey. And Turkey was fighting with somebody at the like there was a lot of shit going on with that, and Flynn got into all of that. Meanwhile, Giuliani had this relationship. Flynn also had his group. What is the name of his group? SCL or something group. And they were working with Turkey too, and he was doing contracting work with Turkey. And other guys who got charged during the course of the Mueller probe here. In 2017, Trump and Giuliani pressured Rex Tillerson to persuade the Justice Department to drop money laundering charges against Giuliani's client Reza Zarrab, a Turkey-based Iranian-born businessman. Giuliani also urged Trump to extradite a Turkish cleric living in exile in the United States, who Recep Tayyip Erdogan accused of inciting a coup. So this is Fethullah Gulen,
I was just
who
say, poor Fethullah Gulen. Just everybody just wants to pick on Fethullah Gulen.
just constantly. I mean, like this remains to me the story from the Trump years that if I could get like closure on any one thing, I really want closure on this. We know Flynn worked with like people and got fairly far along in the kidnapping plot to extradite Fethullah Gulen. We know Giuliani knew about this. He had to know about this because he was working on the back end here to pardon like the Fethullah Gulen stuff. And you have to imagine that Giuliani and Flynn were in cahoots on the front end of this deal too. Like, why is this okay?
We on the podcast, or we as Americans in general, we don't talk about Turkey that much, and Turkey has touched like every geopolitical conflict that we've had for the last 10 years, from like Rojava, Azerbaijan, Flynn, Giuliani, like heavily tied up with the Russians. There's Ilhan Omar
the Ilhan
stuff.
Omar
like,
thing is that to me is just a testament to how far-reaching Turkey is and how developed out their political, like, they have a really sophisticated political operation on a geopolitical level. And I'm with you. I don't know, and
they just keep popping up.
I don't know of anywhere like to get new, like when I'm looking for coverage on that. It wasn't really until I started doing stories and I was like, holy shit, Turkey touches a lot more stuff than you realize. No one talks about it.
Who's doing good coverage of Turkey that's still allowed in Turkey?
Also true. No, and that's the other thing too. These restrictive regimes, of which there are more around the world, are restrictive when it comes to media coverage of them. So it becomes really hard to get good coverage of them. This is why part of the reason why coverage of Syria is so contentious at this point, is that like the government of Syria they are fascists who are not interested in having fair and balanced media coverage.
Yeah. It complicates things when they let people in. Hence, I don't know if you want to touch on that at all. The mate of it all.
No.
Yeah, no.
No, I mean, look. Here's the one thing I want to say about that. The most interesting story was the donations and stuff going into Max Blumenthal. That we're actually now really starting to see. Look, we have long speculated, and I think, look, everyone has opinions, and there are a lot of shared opinions about certain actors on the left who many of us, including on the show here, kind of go like are bad actors. Like who? Name some names, Chris. Aaron Monte, Max Blumenthal, people like that. And in the case of Blumenthal, what?
Sean King.
Sean King is a great one. Yeah, right. Yeah, great poll. Oh, who's the guy Proud Socialist? What's his Ryan Knight? Yeah, Ryan Knight. Yeah, total Milan actor, total grifter guy. But in the case of Blumenthal and Sean King, they're real good examples. King steals from good people, and uses good people's money to fund his own grift, which is actually makes it really kind of particularly diabolical. In the case of Blumenthal and Mate, they in the gray zone media, they're getting money from some of the shittiest governments in the world to put out this worldview. Okay, so the money trail doesn't necessarily say to put out this worldview, but you start to see the money that is coming in, and you go like, would that change your opinion? I mean, I ask you, dear listener, if you could get paid $40,000 a year to get up in your PJs and put out like a little bit of tweets and a little bit of commentary about, oh man, U.S. interventionism's bad, man, particularly in Syria. They really shouldn't be in Syria of all places. But man, the U.S. man, like for $40K a year, most people take that deal. Most people take, people aren't that hard to buy. I'm surprised we haven't seen it sooner.
I wonder what Glenn Greenwald cost.
Right, like that. So that, I mean, that's the big question, right? Now especially seeing Blumenthal, thinking about Greenwald, and he's changing the positions and he's shifting on things and he's trying to square the circle. I've been watching him like for as much as I beat up on him, I watched like a long form interview with him and Ben Burgess just the other day. Like, I'm seeing Greenwald trying to crystallize his thinking around this stuff and make it as like steelman as possible. But
I
like,
didn't
yeah,
I didn't run low enough on content to do his and Nate Robinson's
yeah, no,
interview yet. I couldn't. I wasn't that desperate for content while I was at work, but someday I may take it
arguing in. Is like I mean, good lord, him and Nate Robinson arguing, it sort of self answers the question: why doesn't left politics connect with a wider audience? It hurts because it's true.
Yeah, no, it's too right.
All right, so here's one that I want to talk about. We got some good news here this week. At least I think this is good news. 130 countries have reached an agreement on a global minimum tax rate. And I think this is a really, really positive development. The global tax rate issue has been a real problem. The problem basically has been global tax rates have been leading to a race to the bottom. Not to get too lost in my big theory about foreign policy, but you've got big fish and small fish in the world. Big fish being like India, China, United States, Australia, the United Kingdom. Big fish. These are big economic players. You have these smaller countries. In an effort to get any sort of businesses to do any sort of housing in those countries, they've been saying their tax rates really low. They've been saying their regulations really low. And that has enabled manufacturing to move to places like Malaysia by having a super low tax rate and by having super low labor standards. This is bad for labor across the world. This is also bad for governments across the world, and bad in the battles between governments and capital, in which global capital is really running over global governments. And this is one where we probably want global governments to win a few more of these games. And this 15% tax rate, I think, strikes, at least at first blush, a really happy balance between, yes, I have concerns that broadly speaking, especially for the United States, 15% would be too low, right? I don't want to see our corporate tax rate go to 15%. Although, like, God, if we have 2 more Republican presidents, we're going to get there. Maybe 1 more. I like fuck it. Like, they're gonna be like, we're gonna do like the rest of the world and have 15%. That voice actually sounds like the right voice to deliver that message. But so I like it though because go ahead.
But like something like, I don't know, 15% to 15% to be in a small fish country and have to like invest in a bunch of infrastructure for that country isn't necessarily the worst deal. Probably works out better for us. Like that infrastructure is infrastructure that like business or companies based in this country will be able to use. It will expand horizons there. I mean, yes, we wouldn't want America to be at a 15% rate, but you're paying that extra 25% to do business in America.
Right. So big fish countries can set their rates higher because there's obvious reasons and obvious advantages to being in a big fish country, whether it comes to the court systems, the legal protections, whatever. Essentially, you can rent seek on this. Meanwhile, having the minimum ensures that like a Kenya, a Nairobi, a Chile, you name your developing country, is still getting real money coming in there. So they have Coca-Cola, Clorox, whoever goes in and wants to do manufacturing. I'm just naming American companies too. Like, I mean, we could be talking about like Honda or Mitsubishi or Toyota. Any of these companies go into these other countries, they are paying a fair amount of taxes to these countries and ensuring that you can't just go, well, look, Nairobi's giving me 15%, but I heard Kenya's willing to give me 13.5. What's Nairobi say to that? This sets a baseline to that. So like you could go here, you could go there. Will there still be gamification? Yes. But Absolutely. At the end of the day, I still think this is a net good thing. It's a positive development. The rate at first blush seems like a really good rate to solve for kind of the big state, small state issue here that's always going to be extant. For as much of a challenge as it is in the United States with big states and small states, think about that on a global scale. And like
Absolutely.
as we work out these problems, we have to be thinking about multi-tiering these solutions so that we're encompassing the realities of living in Turkey versus the realities of living in Kenya versus the realities of living on Australia versus the realities of living in China and India. All very and one size fits all policies are always going to be a tough fit. Getting 130 countries to be like, let's do it. Bro. Maybe I'm just getting old and I'm like saying the bar lower, but I heard this week. I was like, dude, fuck yeah, let's go. Let's get
this. Let's lock this in and then come back for another pass on like some like environmental regulation and labor practices.
Next. Yeah, right. No, great start. Let's have lunch and get back in there.
It's like we can't lose all like metal ore processing on this continent just because there's no regulation to do it on like in South Asia or where have you. Like,
and that's the other thing, having this conversation and just seeing this
race from the bottom from like I don't know. I dream of a day where we're smelting steel in the United States and it isn't just like a giant blight for everyone downwind, that like the driving, like we in the United States, we can do these traditional industrial things, but we can do them without completely poisoning our planet. And that would actually be something that we incentivize.
Yeah. And like similarly, this is how I kind of feel about like, you know, the globalization of like business and stuff. I dream of a day where like these businesses actually live up to their marketing material about what happens when they go into these countries, because at the end of the day, like, how does the wealth get into these countries? They need to be able to make their own businesses and their own products, and they need to get the industrial knowledge that really only comes from like working in these trades. That's just at the end of the day, Africa is going to have to become a global competitor in soft drink making. Or whatever, you know, what, name your product, Chile, South America and stuff. I'm not going to just keep saying Chile. South America is going to need to become a global competitor in, you know, let's say cleaning chemicals or whatever it is. And they're going to have to learn those skills from American, Japanese, English, French and German businesses, Chinese to a certain extent. That's how they're going to learn these things. And I dream of a day where businesses go in there and they're not just fleecing these people and fleecing the labor pool in these places. Yeah.
As we were talking about, like when you first brought it up, it was like these 15% tax revenues going into the what was traditionally the global South, the smaller fish countries. Like I worry about, there were similar concerns that were had about the stimulus checks here in the US, of it just like, it's just going to go to pay the credit card debt. It's just going to go to pay WTO and IMF loans or what have you in the short term. That was where my brain initially popped, but the development and just the cash flow through those places would, given some good government conduct, would just benefit them.
I mean, the other
more than whatever IMF demons I have in my brain from.
So the other reason why, like, I sort of believe in that narrative is the best possible narrative, not like ideally we would have a global reparations summit, and over the next 6 months we would really kind of sit there and think about how to like distribute and correct the wealth inequities in the world. Short of that happening, which I know, you know, I'm waiting on my grand religion summit where the Muslims and the Jews and the Christians finally get together and iron out, like, they're so close, Dan. They're not, if you really think, they're not that far off. They just got to get it together, bro. Come on, guys, let's get in a room. They got a few differences. Even just like all the Catholics, let's solve some of these risks, right? Come on. One ecumenical council away from solving this.
Well, I'll meet in Belfast.
So like here going back, so I don't think any of these things are happening, right? And I obviously you can't do a stimulus check for the global south, the small fish countries, and you can't do a UBI either, which would be another like sort of analog, like why do I favor a national UBI? Because I sort of think the only way you're going to get money back into some of these hollowed out municipalities, like in West Virginia, like in the American South, specifically, but in the Rust Belt too, is you just need to put capital back in there. So you don't have those two options. So really, the only option is these countries start finding a way to compete in the global economy, which is going to be complicated and dicey. And like, we have to think about how do we make the global economy a fairer place to compete in. But that's ultimately going to be the story of prosperity. Like, China likes to point to pulling out, what, 1 billion people from poverty. How'd they do that? They embraced like making stuff. They didn't necessarily embrace making good stuff, but they embraced making stuff at first, and then they started getting better at making good stuff. Even their knockoffs, some of them aren't bad now. I have a Chinese-made effects pedal that works just fine.
I personally think that the poverty, the correlation between 1 billion Chinese citizens coming out of poverty was directly related to the number of sparrows. It was really just the peasants.
When Mao said around 1960, look, these birds are the one thing that are keeping us from getting the crops really going. Birds and you having too many kids. If we get those two things under control.
Everyone needs a pig iron furnace. Kill all of your birds. Stop having so many babies.
The birds thing, for those of you who don't know about this, go and look it up. It's like it's one of the strangest governmental policies pursued by anyone ever. Like, yeah, like a deeply held belief that the birds are affecting crop growth, and that you can just kill birds. And again, this is in 1960. Like this is deep. Like science was pretty far along on biology fronts, especially. Like, Mao's a weird dude. Anyways, where shall we go next here? That's all I got on the taxes thing. Okay, this is a big deal. U.S. companies hit by a colossal cyber attack. This is what I teased at the start of the episode as if you didn't pay attention on July 4th weekend, you totally would have missed this one. Huntress Labs said that it believed that a Russian-linked REvil ransomware gang was responsible for a major hack in their systems. U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency, a federal agency, said in a statement that it's taking actions to address the attack, so the government's looking into it. Cyber breach emerged on Friday afternoon as companies across the U.S. were clocking off for a long Independence Day weekend. Quote, this is a colossal and devastating supply chain attack, said Huntress Labs senior security researcher John Hammond. REvil, also known as Sodin no Kibi, is one of the most prolific and profitable cyber criminal groups in the world. This gang was blamed by the FBI for a hack in May that paralyzed operations at JBS, one of the world's largest meat suppliers. And the group sometimes threatens to post stolen documents on its website if victims don't comply with the demands. REvil was also linked on a coordinated attack on 24 local governments here in Texas back in 2019. So this is fairly serious. This group's activity is ramping up. And another thing that I am now starting to worry about, Dan, going into the next election cycles with the Democrat in office is our friends in Russia seem to still be pretty crafty with them damn keyboards and the internets.
Yeah. And it still seems very one-sided. Like for all of the talk about how like Russia and the GHB, they just want to sow chaos in America. They're really intent on sowing a particular brand of chaos.
Yes. And even for our own part, like, I thought when you said one side you're gonna be referring to like art, we're always like, well, we're looking into that. I am waiting for the, like, at this point, especially
it would be nice. It would be nice to like see on the news, oh, mysteriously a whole bunch of server farms in Russia or Ukraine or Latvia all caught on fire for some reason, the same way like we were able to blow up some Iranian centrifuges. Like
as a fucking
some...
lib, I'm pretty ready for an angry Vladimir Putin going, I can't believe they destroyed that computer technology factory that had absolutely nothing to do with Russian hacking.
Yeah, the I would love to see that conference because he would still come out and do it. Like he needs to be angry about it, but is usually pretty good about like not actually. That would be a fun conundrum for his translator to try and to not like accent, like, because I'm sure he would be very very riding a line on it. And so imagine being that translator and having to not give up the ghost. Like he has to clearly understand that Putin is as full of shit as we all know he is, but to not to have to constrain yourself in that way.
See, this is what I'm saying. I want, if Biden gave me this moment, I'd be like, look, here's the thing. I don't support that sort of stuff, broadly speaking, but like, don't sit here and tell me that Russia of all countries doesn't have this shit coming. Like, Putin has a receipt. The Skripal poisoning, shooting down MH370. I mean, like, invading Crimea. Like, he's got a 10-year receipt coming. So yes, if a cyber's, so long as there wasn't like a body count with it. Like if you told me that they were out on a weekend and that thing went down like Weather Underground style, like, I'm sorry, you're not going to get me to shed tears for a building that was being used for ransoming. Yes, okay, you don't like this corporation or that corporation. It's still not a good thing that a state actor is ransoming corporate, stuff like that. No, I would be totally fine with them finding a way to, without killing human beings, blow the shit out of some of those places.
Yeah, just somebody like knocking out the cooling system in one of those server farms wouldn't be the worst thing that ever happened. For the honesty of global politics.
Press conference.
Yeah,
like the one thing that is important is I need this to be a sizable enough action that it forces Putin to talk about it, and like it becomes this like juxtaposed, like you have Trump in Helsinki, and then you have a solo Vladimir Putin like pissing and moaning about how Joe Biden, unbelievable that this could happen, and I don't know, I would love for Biden to be like, oh no, we didn't do that, Jack, no way.
I mean, here we have so like in our country that's entertaining ourselves to death. Like we have so much like there's like soft malarkey targets. Like the Russians could shut down Disney World, and it would be a big fucking deal. It would be a huge deal. Like knock the power out to Disney World. Like but I feel like all of Russian industry, I don't know what we could knock out there that wouldn't have like a serious body count. Like you shut down a natural gas line, like they're knowing the fail safes that I'm sure is it Gazprom?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the answer is shutting down their oil expeditions, like their actual oil mining rigs. Like if you went after the cyber systems inside of all of their oil and petroleum rigs, and like you started seeing on like Rosneft's the one, Gazprom was the one that they wanted to have Putzo, what's his name, Carter Page. Yeah. But Rosneft's the one that was originally Yukos, and that was the big oil company, and then it got turned into Rosneft. I think if you saw a massive cyber attack on the petroleum, like the cyber systems of those petroleum mining operations, that would send a shockwave to Russia. That would change their tune.
That's it's just all of those industries. Like there'd be a higher likelihood of a body count around something like that. Like,
I mean, yeah.
I was just trying to think about like what does Russia do that we could safely shut down? Like make the trains in Russia not run on time. I doubt they run on time. And
I mean, the thing is with the cold too. Like, yeah, no. Anytime you just
like
no, and this is the other thing too. I mean, Putin just doesn't care about this. Like, Russia just really lives on this ever like constant like thin line of like, you know, we're back to burning wood if, you know, like if our national resources don't come to pass here. Like, we're just going to chop down some wood, and that's going to keep us warm during this like brutal Russian winter.
In retaliation against Vladimir Putin, I want the highest budget, most involved clandestine like prank program to be like, I want like whoopee cushions on his chair, maybe some shoe polish on his coffee mug, you know, like the real old school Three Stooges level gags, I think would both infuriate him and keep collateral damage to a minimum.
Okay, so if Joe
maybe not by his staff.
does see this,
oh,
it did that to Putin, and like Putin's like, what?
Get him with a hand buzzer.
See this? Bah! That would be the greatest. That would be the great Biden moment.
Biden and Boris Johnson.
All right. Speaking of somebody who seems to grow ever more powerful, not Vladimir Putin, Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin, our president, has agreed to support the use of budget reconciliation to pass a broader tax and social spending bill. Manchin says he believes that a Democrat-only infrastructure bill, quote, can be done, but hasn't agreed on how big it will be, adding that it shouldn't be linked to the separate bipartisan agreement. Manchin's comments come as the Progressive Caucus told the White House and party leaders that they would withhold their support from the bipartisan infrastructure bill if the bigger, broader tax and social spending package wasn't passed in tandem. Manchin, meanwhile, urged progressive Democrats to, quote, take the win on the bipartisan agreement. So the question is not, is Joe Manchin growing ever more powerful? That is, of course, a foregone conclusion. The question is Manchin for real when he says that he's like on board with doing this reconciliation bill? Or is he using cinema as the submariner later on here?
We're gonna have it's gonna be Coons coming in from nowhere with the steel chair.
People sleep on him. People sleep on how easy it is to buy Chris Coons.
I mean, I guess you could. It's pretty dicey. Has anybody talked to Kristen Sinema since? I mean, are we still? But what is he's Manchin's in, but doesn't that just bring us back to 50 votes? Like, I don't understand.
50 am I missing? Fine, because we have Kamala Harris as the tiebreaker.
But that's for the reconciliation bill. What about do we have 10 Republicans that are going to come along on this?
That's the real question.
Infrastructure bill?
Then the question all academic? Is Manchin sort of dooming the bipartisan bill by saying he's on board with the, like, is this Manchin doing like it's 3D free chess shit?
It's free for him to say like, oh, I was all for the bipartisan infrastructure bill, but you guys had to progressive it up with the reconciliation bill afterwards and tying it together. Like it may just be,
but he's chosen not to do this. So like either Manchin is one earnest on this, or he's being hyper cagey on this, like super cagey. I also don't know how much I believe that, but like, I'm trying to think of like, what are the other live options here? It's really he's either honest or he's like actually working some 3D chess bullshit here. But either way, Manchin continues to dictate the contours of everything that's happening in Washington, up to and including this like last story here that I've got, and I've got a couple of polls before we dip. Um, Last story here is that the House has voted to remove the busts of people associated with the Dred Scott decision from Congress and other Confederate soldiers, but it is dependent on a 60 vote threshold in the Senate in order to remove these busts. So these busts of Confederates and of the judge who made the Dred Scott decision may survive because of the filibuster, only further bolstering its long legacy to actually opposing civil rights legislation and civil rights actions.
Yeah, that's a very fitting avatar for the for that's for that legacy of the filibuster, and for what it represented for such a long time, it standing in the way of removing the busts of the people who once wielded it as a weapon is it's very poetic.
Yeah, as the white majority patrician class goes, but think of the rights of the minority. Yeah, nobly. Yeah, it's so twisted. It's so twisted. We, the few, the moneyed, like that's a shadow black out there. That's
Okay.
that sometimes we do the scene wash, and I just use a cat to do, like a crossfade.
A lot of traffic on the page today.
One of the great things about the kitchen here is that you get all sorts of stuff happening behind me. Lots of cat action. All right. Last story here. I've already beaten this into the ground. 59% of Republican voters think that Trump won or that Biden won by voter fraud. So even if you don't objectively think that Biden, cheat, you think voter fraud was there, and it's over half the Republican electorate at this point. They're not coming to their senses. Like, this is really baked in the cake.
Every single person asking this question needs to do it in two parts, and they need to frame it in do you think that there was fraud on there was voter fraud during the 2020 elections? And then the follow-up question is, do you think that also applied to all of the House and congressional races? Because I think the motivation, like the notion that like Biden, that there was cheating, but only at the presidential level
style. Even my sensible Republican friends really do they haven't converted, but they laugh at this because it's really it is a ridiculous premise.
The second you act with it, at least in this, it's a conversation that I've had a few times, even out here in blue Sonoma County, California, and it's a withering realization for people who are really, really stuck in that cognitive lane. And it's something that I don't know. I haven't seen necessarily deployed by national media.
You can't simultaneously question the White House and yet also question all the Senate races at the same time. It's certainly in some of these battleground states. Was there fraud in the 20 seats the Republicans picked up in the House? This is what I was saying earlier, though, and it is a drum I'm now just going to keep beating forever. Trying to win via hypocrisy, which has been the classic left liberal approach to dealing with Republicans. I come from the Daily Show generation. You and I are both children of the Daily Show. And look, there are some people who like to beat up on Jon Stewart. I think Jon Stewart's actually better than he is bad. Especially with all this, the work that he did for the 9/11 rescuers and shit, I think is forever to his eternal credit. Because he never gave up on that fight. But We come from an era where the dominant paradigm to dealing with the Republicans was point to their hypocrisy. And if you do that, they will come to their senses. Joe Biden, in a certain way, is an extension of Jon Stewartism. Like it's it's not Jon Stewart inspired Joe Biden or even Joe Biden inspired Jon Stewart. I think it's a disease of left liberal people. Is that like we think that we can point to see how they make you vote against your own interests, and that like that is going to win the day with people, and it doesn't. When we point to hypocrisy, even when we're right, it comes off as smug because it makes the other person feel like they're stupid, because that's sort of the whole point, right? You're pointing out their hypocrisy to show that they're being dumb.
Yeah. I mean, it comes from us having a sense of shame and feeling that, and thinking, like, having empathy and feeling for other people, and thinking that if we feel these things and we feel shame, and it is a motivating factor in us not making certain decisions, that surely our political rivals must feel something similar.
Yeah, no, I totally suffer from this. Like, yeah, if you go, Chris, hey, you're being sort of bullshit, I'll go, huh? Yeah, no, you're right. I am kind of being bullshit here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if someone throws that gauntlet down at me and really specifically comes at the like, I think you're actually fucking really out to lunch on this or whatever, and like, here's why, makes a reason argument, I would look at that, generally speaking, and go, that's an interesting opportunity for me to like actually take a step back and like take a look at myself. Whereas there's especially the Trump voter.
Just going to come back. Cry more.
Yeah. Right. No, yeah. I mean, look, the Ben Shapiro of the world, that Ben Shapiro specifically is not trying to have that moment of introspection. A Donald Trump person is not trying to have that moment of introspection. Yeah. Even Joe Rogan, like, has he changed his views over the years a little bit? Yeah, a little, but like, he has. If there was this moment, if there's this moment where you realize, I'm actually platforming guys like Gadsod, and they're like fucking horrible people, like really, really bad people who have really bad views that are like racially motivated views. There's not that step back, and like the same thing with the Republican voters in your life. They don't care about the cognitive dissonances, and if you pointed it out to them, they go, what do you want me to do? Vote Democrat? And that ends that conversation. You're done. Like, yeah, and Joe Biden, the worst part about him is he's not converting for all of his centrism. His brand of centrism is actually a horrible tool for conversion. He could at least be useful to me, to maybe catch some of these wayward souls and go, look, Joe Biden is a Democrat who likes low taxes and shit, and like, you should like him, but he doesn't even throw off a brand of politics that does that, and that's what pisses me off the most.
My parents are both fairly, I mean, they're on the conservative side. Over in the past 20 years, I think they've probably voted consistently Republican. But they're not, like, if there was a bridge point, like if there was a Democrat that my parents could vote for, it's Joe Biden, because he's basically a Republican.
My dad,
like the crime bill, like the crime bill, his crime bill speech was speaking specifically to my parents, speaking specifically to the Reaganauts who were in their early 30s, starting families in 1983 or whatever. Like, it's the fact that
I can't stress this enough. I wouldn't like it, but god damn it, if he could at least sell it, I would be sitting here on the microphone and telling you, guys, you don't have to like it, but I need you to recognize that this is a politically effective tool. It has serious utility, and it is great. The Dan's parents and my parents are actually going like, Biden's a Democrat I can live with, because my parents and your parents would be swinging back to the R's. And like, if Biden was actually pulling them and they were going like, yeah, there's my guy, instead my dad called me up and telling me that like Biden's so fucking liberal, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, and I want to be like, Dad, I fucking hate Joe Biden. I need you to understand this. Like, I need you to stop. Cause like,
I would still be arguing with them about politics, but it would be it wouldn't be it wouldn't hurt my heart inside as much.
Yes, to hear him called a liberal and be like, "No, Dad, like he's not." He's
Well,
he's like, absolutely not. Stop, stop. You need to like him. I need you to like him. I need the fight to be over. Chris, Joe Biden's okay, and me being like, "No, Dad, he's not actually that great. We need someone better."
the only argument that I want to have is Joe Biden is the best that is possible, and me arguing, no, there are better things possible. Like,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, again, that's actually a fine place to close it. If Biden's brand of centrism and Manchin's brand of centrism and Sinema's brand of centrism actually held the appeal to the people that this brand of centrism is supposed to court, I would not beat up on it anywhere near the degree I beat up on it. I beat up on it so much because it is presented as manifestly obvious and almost that you're stupid to not think this way. And yet, when it comes to political efficacy, you basically can't demonstrate it out in the wild. Centrists tend to lose. Yeah, Biden's an exception and not the rule.
they landed there a long time ago by triangulating, but if you're going to triangulate your position, you got to keep doing it so that you move with the society. It's like they triangulated in like 1980s and they're like, nope, this is where we're standing. This is the middle. I am standing here in the middle. This is what the center looks like. One
other thing too that gets lost in the centrism thing is that the chief centrists, like if you watch MSNBC these days, I don't know why you would. I cannot fathom it. But just suppose you needed something to keep you company because you're lonely. Mao's okay sometimes. But like you would see Claire McCaskill on there. And she is often presented as the high priestess of centrism. And you see Joe Manchin, the high priest of centrism. And what's notable about both these people's political careers, I think, is that their centrism is a form of a political crouch. It's a defensive posture. This is the posture you take when you are losing your state. When your party is like in danger of losing the state, you run to the center specifically to hang on. That's what Susan Collins does. It's not like what's notable about all these centrists is that they're not on offense. Other than Manchin, who like in government's like, I control everything now. But like broadly speaking, if you look at their political Manchin's in real danger of not getting reelected. He may be done with politics, but like if he's done with politics, it's because politics is done with him. Yeah. You know, like that's probably a more apt way of putting it. And he's doing this whole centrist routine, and this like flex thing to show that he's got a lot of muscle in Washington, that he really knew how to bring home the bacon in a serious way for West Virginia. And yeah, I don't think centrism gets highlighted enough as it's not a winner. Even, you know,
yeah,
Joe Biden's election is going to serve as a smokescreen, but on a congressional level, time and again, like it's tough for a Conor Lamb to get elected. It's tough for a lot of these centrists to get elected. And it's tough to get reelected too.
Yeah.
At least Scott Brown.
It doesn't bring the excitement.
Scott Brown, great example. So there's a centrist Republican. He wins in Massachusetts. Can't get reelected. You go, okay, well, but I thought centrism was good. I thought centrism could win where, like, it might fail otherwise. I thought people would see the prevailing wisdom of centrism. But they don't. Like that's not how things tend to shake out here. So yeah, great place to end it. Dan, where can people find you on the internet?
At DL Carpenter on the Twitters.
As for me, I'm at DWATG. That's where you can find Don't Worry About the Government. Our homepage is don'tworry.tv. We now actually have like a guy trying to feebly get information from me on how to fix the webpage, and I'm trying. Guess who doesn't know where like half the bodies are buried for don'tworry.tv? This guy. And I am learning all the things I don't know. The known unknowns, if you will. So that's fun. If you want to support that endeavor, because that is costing me some money, patreon.com/DWATG. Hopefully, like, it will clean up stuff. There's some broke. I know there are broken links. There's some stuff that's in like the Disney vault, but there's other stuff that like we want to figure out some way to make the page look better. Like it, dude, it's old. Like I didn't even build it. Like yeah, it's way old. So do that. Sub up on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, all of those places. I gotta go feed these cats. I want to thank you guys all so much for supporting this show. Until the next one, bye-bye, and happy 4th of July, baby. Nixon. Nixon now, Nixon forever.